Blaze, he had a great sense of humor. He was really odd, and we would just do anything we could to be different from all the other folk acts that were playing there. And we would. Well, you saw the one a couple seconds ago was with the marching band helmets. There it is.
Yeah.
We'd go to we'd go to thrift stores in the afternoon, and we saw like 30 band helmets. So we bought them and took them to the gig that night, and everybody in the audience had these marching band helmets on. And or we'd play a set with our backs to the audience, or we'd play a set with our shirts off, or standing on chairs, or just anything to be weird. And it worked.
Welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party, your weekly musical happy hour where musicians pick an album from their back catalog and tell the stories behind their favorite tracks in front of a live online audience.
This week we talk with revered singer, songwriter, and producer Gurf Morlix. We revisit his 2011 album Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream, talk about his many years of playing with the late great Blaze Foley, and get some wild first-hand stories about this infamous Texas talent, whose songs were covered by Townes van Zandt, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, Lucinda Williams, and John Prine. So pour a beverage, grab a snack, and kick back as we listen to music together here on the Back Catalog Listening Party, where it's always Friday and old albums never sounded better. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Woo.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
Hey, it's me, Gurf Morlix.
Yeah.
Crashing the party.
Welcome to the party.
We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, Gurf Morlix joining us from Austin, Texas today. And folks, it looks like Linda was first to the party today, joining us from Tennessee.
Welcome, Linda.
All right.
And Connie joining us from Richfield. And Full Moon says howdy from Prospect, Ohio. Howdy from us. And Tony and I joining you all from sunny South Minneapolis. It's a beautiful summer day. It's actually probably temperature-wise not hugely different today from Austin, Texas, oddly.
Yeah.
And it looks like we have Lorna joining us from New Hampshire.
All right.
Alinda from New Haven, Connecticut. So folks joining from all over, we're excited. If you're new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, this is our weekly musical happy hour. So if you don't have a beverage or snack, feel free to go grab one and join us. And let us know where you are tuned in from. We like to bring the Friday vibes to whatever day it is, or however you're feeling in the week. We're going to bring you the Friday vibes. So with great music, conversation, and a beverage if you're interested. And Tony, are you enjoying a beverage today?
Yeah, I'm going back to Trail Magic. It's a THC-infused beverage from right here in the Twin Cities, and I'm enjoying it in my Back Catalog Listening Party pint glass.
Nice. And Gurf, do you have a beverage happening?
I thought I'd have a little glass of wine in honor of Blaze Foley.
Oh,
excellent.
Very good. And because it's so sunny and warm here, I thought I'd pour myself a refreshing NA cocktail. It's a berry tonic is what it is. So
all right, well,
berries.
Cheers to you, Ellen. Cheers to you, Gurf. And cheers to all of you out there listening live. Like Ellen said, this is our weekly musical happy hour. And it's way more fun when everybody's in on the conversation. So there's a real-time chat. Use it. If you've got questions or comments for Gurf, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes. And Jim joining us from across the border in Ontario, North Bay. Welcome to the party. And we are so excited to have Gurf Morlix joining us today. And one of the things we love to do is invite some of our favorite artists on to the show, and they get to pick a record from their back catalog to feature and the tracks that we're going to feature. And today, Gurf chose an album that is not songs of his own, but Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream. So all songs by Blaze Foley. So we're going to share some great stories about that. But before we dig in, for folks who maybe are less familiar with you or your music, Gurf, and you've done a lot of different things, maybe you could give a brief 2-minute origin story of like where you grew up and how you fell into making the music you make.
Well, that's a crazy story. I grew up in just outside of Buffalo, New York. And of course, I saw the Beatles when I was like 12 on Ed Sullivan's show, and that's what I wanted to do. I knew it immediately. And so the next day in school, it was a giant revolution. Everybody started bands the next day and started combing their bangs down over their forehead, and we'd start a band, and we'd have the members and we'd have the name, but it might be in some cases like a year or more before we could even get an instrument, or maybe never, you know. But anyhow, my course was set from that evening on,
Nice.
and I've been able to have many different careers, but all in music.
Yeah, and maybe so of course you are a singer-songwriter in your own right, but also done a lot of production and
A whole lot.
played in other people's bands. Anything in and tell us also because this album again is all Blaze Foley songs, and you worked with Blaze Foley, so maybe you could talk about how you met and how you started playing music with him.
Yeah, I met Blaze in Austin in probably 1977 or 78, and he came up to me at a gig, and he wanted to show me this guitar. In between songs, he had a guitar in a case he wanted me to see, and actually, he wanted to sell it to me, and I said, "Well, we need to talk on a break, you know? I'm kind of in the middle of a show here." But then I went over on a break, and I talked to him, and I found that I liked him. I also found out years later he sold that same guitar to several people, none of whom got one. uh, but but anyhow, I just liked him, and we hit it off. And Blaze was homeless by choice,
Hmm.
not by circumstance. But once we hit it off, and he found out that I had a home, and he realized he didn't, he just started sleeping on my couch, which he did for years. And he wrote these great songs. I went to his gig a few nights later. He had a little happy hour gig in a disco in Austin, and I went to that, and his songs were remarkable. And so we just hit it off, and then we just kind of became partners, musical partners.
Excellent. And so how many oh, there's a great photo
Oh
that you
yeah.
shared. Tell us what we're looking at for those of who are watching the YouTube version.
That's in Houston, at a place called Corky's. That was a great little club that we played a lot. And Blaze, he had a great sense of humor. He was really odd, and we would just do anything we could to be different from all the other folk acts that were playing there. And you know, we would. Well, you saw the one a couple seconds ago was with the marching band helmets. There it is. We'd go to we'd go to thrift stores in the afternoon, and we saw like 30 band helmets. So we bought them and took
Of
them to the
course.
gig that night, and everybody in the audience had these marching band helmets on. And or we'd play a set with our backs to the audience, or we'd play a set with our shirts off, or standing on chairs, or just anything to be weird. And it
Nice.
worked. It took.
And was that a dog I also saw on stage in that one of those photos?
I don't recall the
Oh no,
dog.
that's the back of someone's head. Okay, cool. Someone who was not wearing a marching band helmet. I love that. Um, and so how many years did you play with Blaze?
Well, so it was like 78 when I started playing with him, and then I moved down to Houston in the end of 78. I was living in Austin, but I went down for some shows, for some gigs with this band that I kinda hooked up with, and Blaze, who was living on my couch, I said, "I gotta go to Houston for, a week's worth of gigs." He said, "I'm coming with you, I know some people." And so I just introduced him around to the folk musicians in Houston, and, everybody liked him as much as I did. He was weird, and so he started getting gigs, and I started playing the gigs with him, and I think I left Houston and Austin. I was going back and forth, and Blaze was just riding with me wherever we went. Um, but I left Houston in fall of 81 and moved to Los Angeles, and Blaze couldn't quite make the leap out to there. So he ended up staying, and then he kind of started going down this sort of slide into alcoholism and homelessness, and it wasn't going good. And then it kind of he started like blowing off gigs because he'd rather just get drunk, and it was really tragic. He was the funniest person I ever knew, and the most tragic person I ever knew.
Mm.
But he wrote those amazingly honest songs, and I didn't see him many times after I moved out to LA. I would come back to Austin and for a gig with Lucinda Williams or something, and I would find Blaze, and we always had a great time. But he was just sliding downhill, and then in 1989 he ended up getting murdered, protecting an old man, an old drinking buddy of his, from his abusive son, and it was really sad. But when I got the call that Blaze was gone, and I had known that someday I was going to get a call like that. It wasn't a surprise.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like we have a photo here of you honoring Blaze at the cemetery.
Blaze's grave in deep South Austin. Mm-hmm. And you see all the stuff there in that photo. It's people, the first time I went to the grave, I was there for the funeral, and it was 15 degrees in Austin. I flew back from LA and went to the funeral, and everybody got lost on the way to the grave, and I'd say only a quarter of the people that were going to go there made it there. But when I came back a few years later, I found the cemetery somehow by accident, and I went, "That's where Blaze is." And I went in and I looked all over, and I finally found his grave, thinking there wouldn't be anything there. And there were toys and picks and capos and empty beer bottles and vodka bottles, and everyone that Blaze met loved him, unless his behavioral problems made you dislike him immensely. But everybody that he met, he treated them like his best friend, and it had an effect on people. And every time I go to the grave now, there is new stuff there. People revered him.
Wow.
Yeah, and you mentioned so there was a documentary made about Gurf's life. If folks want to sort of dig a little deeper.
Blaze's life.
Yes, Blaze's life.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so this album that you put out, you actually kind of toured with the film. Can you talk a little bit about that connection?
Yeah, well, I decided that I wanted to make a record of Blaze's songs. I kept trying to get people to record companies to finance a tribute album with different artists, and I couldn't ever get the money lined up. And then I decided at one point I needed to make an album of me singing Blaze songs, and I played them with him hundreds of times. I knew them all. I didn't have to learn them. And my friend Kevin Triplett decided he was going to make a documentary film about Blaze. He'd never made a documentary before, but I watched it. It took him 11 years to finish it, and I watched it coming together, and I realized about 9.5 years into it that it was actually going to be finished, and it was going to be really good. And so I decided that was time for me to make an album of Blaze's songs. And so I did. And then the film came out, and the album came out at the same time in 2011. And we spent all of 2011 and part of 2012 touring, showing Kevin's documentary, which is really, really good. I think it's on YouTube now. And then followed by a set of me playing Blaze songs. And it worked really well.
Cool.
Excellent.
Well, we'll make sure to track that link down and put it in the show notes at backcataloglisteningparty.com.
Yeah, and also for those of you listening to the podcast version of the show, you can also, when you go to those show notes at backcataloglisteningparty.com, you'll also be able to check out some of those great photos. We were just looking at photos of Gurf and Blaze playing together in the marching band hats, and also Blaze's grave and all of that. So you can check that out there. But I think right now we are ready for some music.
That's right.
So the first track that you picked to feature from this album, Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream, is Clay Pigeons, a song that probably many people know. Is there anything you want to say about this song?
Well, John Prine recorded it, and John Prine, a friend of mine, played Blaze's tape for John Prine one night when he played in Austin. And he listened to Clay Pigeons, and he said, "Wow, I don't remember writing that song. It sounds like me." And then he recorded it. And there's a whole lot of people out there that think that John Prine wrote that song, but it's a Blaze Foley song. And Prine did a Austin City Limits show, and I was leaving town the next day, and I was really strapped for time. But I went to the show, and I didn't really have time to do it, but I went to the show, and he played that song and talked about Blaze, and it was just a really moving moment.
Nice.
And an amazing song.
Yeah.
It really is, and I'm so excited we get to kick off our hour with Clay Pigeons from Gurf Morlix singing Blaze Foley here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I'm going down to the Greyhound station, gonna get a ticket to ride. Find a big fat lady with 2 or 3 kids and sit down by her side. Ride till the sun comes up and down around me about 2 or 3 times. Smoking cigarettes in the last seat. Try to hide my sorrow from the people I meet and get along with it all. Go down where people say y'all. Sing a song with a friend. Change the shape that I'm in. And get back in the game and start playing again. I'd like to stay, but I might have to go and start over again. I go back down to Texas. I go to somewhere I've never been. Get up in the morning, go out at night. I won't have to go home. Get used to being alone. Change the words of this song and start singing again. I'm tired of running around looking for answers to questions that I already know. I could build me a castle of memories just to have somewhere to go. Count the days and the nights that it takes to get back in the saddle again. Feed the pigeons some clay, turn the night into day, and start talking again when I know what to say. I'm going down to the Greyhound station, gonna get a ticket to ride. Find a big fat lady with 2 or 3 kids and sit down by her side. Ride till the sun comes up and down around me about 2 or 3 times. Smoking cigarettes in the last seat. Try to hide my sorrow from the people I meet and get along with it all. Go down where people say y'all. Feed the pigeons some clay. Turn the night into day. And start talking again when I know what to say.
All right. Gurf Morlix covering Blaze Foley's Clay Pigeons from his album Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream album that came out in 2011 that we are revisiting today with Gurf joining us live from his home in Austin, Texas. And Jim says Clay Pigeons is a masterpiece. Thumbs up. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It is.
What a great
really.
song.
You know, I talked to Blaze every day for many years, and I always meant to ask him why Clay Pigeons were in that song, and I never did, and I regret it to this day.
Yeah.
But that's the mystery. That's what makes that song so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of folks joining in on the comments and have some questions for Gurf, and we're going to get to them. And so please, any comments or questions that you have for Gurf about this project, about these songs, about Blaze, any of that, feel free to throw it in the chat. We have a question from Lorna who said, what was Blaze like on a quiet day? Not performing, not holding court, just being. What did stillness look like on him?
Well, stillness was a bit of a problem for him, but he was so funny. I mentioned his drinking and his behavioral problems, but when I first met him and he attached himself to me, We were drinking beer and sometimes tequila in bars at night at gigs, but he'd wake up sober and we would just have the greatest time. We'd go tooling around Houston, going to resale stores and music stores, and he was constantly funny. Like I said, the funniest person I ever knew, and also the saddest.
That's not uncommon, I think.
Yeah.
And we also got a question: is there a song of his that you feel doesn't get enough attention?
Well, I really like "Cold Cold World." That's I think that's my favorite Blaze song, and it doesn't get the attention that "If I Could Only Fly" and "Clay Pigeons" get, because I don't think anyone covered it, or not that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to get to Cold Cold World
Good.
before the end of today's show, so
Yeah.
folks should stick around for that. We're really looking forward to that. One question I had is about this album itself. I know you are a producer, worked with a lot of great artists like Lucinda Williams and Robert Earl Keen and Mary Gauthier. Is this a record that you produced yourself, or did you have someone else record it for you?
No, I produce all my own records, and I would love to be able to afford a real producer, but it's what it has to be. But I've gotten good at it, I think.
Sounds fantastic.
People tell me they like the sound of my records, so
Yeah.
I guess I did okay.
Agreed. And I'd love to know, if the personnel that you brought in to work on the record with you, and if the choices were made based on your relationship with Gurf or Gurf's relationship with them, or can you tell us a little bit about the album?
Well, I used a drummer named Rick Richards, who I knew back in Houston. He was like 19 and a skinny little kid, and then I didn't see him for many years, and then all of a sudden I saw him at a gig in Austin, and he was the Buddha back behind the drums, and he was just great. And he played on all the records that I made up until like 5 years ago or so. So he's on there. And then I did pretty much everything else, um, except I think Kimmy Rhodes might have sang on a song. I can't remember. She was a good friend of Blaze's. But it's mostly me and Rick Richards on drums.
Nice. Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
And did you record this at your home studio, or did you
Yeah.
record it somewhere else? Okay. So you just kind of layered on the tracks as you went?
Yep. I seem to be able to do that and somehow have it sound like some different musicians played it together.
Well, you had me fooled, Gurf. I
Right.
was digging that groove, man. I'm curious if it was just a drummer then that you brought in. Did you have him lay it down first and then you played to that, or was it the other way around?
We would probably do it with drums and a scratch vocal and a scratch guitar, or maybe a scratch bass, and just do it with the two of us. And then I would just add everything.
Nice. So you got that foundation, that rhythmic
Yeah.
foundation. Sounds great.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, it really does. And Sophie chimed in to say, "Hi, Gurf, love you."
Hi.
And folks are digging the music and the stories. And Linda had an interesting question. She said, "Thinking about the music you might have made, any idea where his music would be like had he still been around?" I know that's a tough thing to predict.
It's impossible, but that's why I wrote that song. I wrote one song for Blaze, and he had left a lot of cassette tapes with me, and they're just like work tapes where he would play a finger picking groove for like 45 minutes on one side of a cassette. He was just a master finger picker. And at one point, wherever he was staying, like I said, he was always pretty much homeless. Somehow he had access to like a 4-track cassette machine or something. And he stacked tracks, and he stacked vocals, and he stacked guitars and on different songs. And I realized that he was brilliant at it. And it just got me thinking about what he would have been doing, all these years later. It's been a long time, since 1989. And, if he had pulled through like some people do, I think he would be a major music person. I think his talent was undeniable, and he had some problems that took him down, and it didn't really have to be that way.
Yeah.
Well, it's so great you could honor him with this album.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to since he died. I wanted to. Blaze never got to tour. He only played in the few little towns he lived in. He lived in Chicago for a while and outside of Atlanta for a while and Austin and Houston. And those were the only places he ever played in clubs. He never got to tour.
Mm. Jim chimed in to say Hard Road is my favorite Gurf song.
All right.
Yeah, feel free to throw any comments like that in there, and also what your favorite Blaze Foley songs are. We'd love to hear that as well. So we can throw that in the chat. If you just joined us for the back catalog listening party, again, we are being joined by Gurf Morlix from Austin, Texas. We're revisiting his 2011 tribute to Blaze Foley called Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream. And we're listening to tracks, talking about them, and we'd love you to be a part of the conversation. And we're going to jump back into some music, and then we'll get to more of these questions because there's so many and there's so much to talk about. But this is the next track that you picked to feature, Gurf, Baby, Can I Crawl Back to You? And is there anything you want to say about this?
Well, it's about Blaze screwing up as he often did and apologizing and, coming home way too late, way too drunk, whatever. It's one of my favorites. It's just so simple and somehow elegant in its misbehavior.
All right, well, let's give it a spin. This is Gurf Morlix playing Blaze Foley's Baby, Can I Crawl Back to You here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Barroom, counting my dough, running out of money and places to go. Sitting in a barroom, drunk at night, I won't get to sleep till the first daylight. Baby, can I crawl back to you? Baby, can I crawl back to you? Going to the bus station, nothing in my hand, gonna buy a ticket for the promised land. Ought to be arriving in a day or two. The bus might leave me, can I come back to you? Baby, can I crawl back to you? Baby, can I crawl back to you? Sitting in a jailhouse, counting my dough. Ran out of money, but I got a place to go. I ought to be leaving in a day or two. Get myself together, can I come back to you? Baby, can I crawl back to you? Baby, can I crawl back to you? Got me some insurance, paid to the brim. Jump in a river and I might learn to swim. I learned to swim, but I might just drown. Got that insurance paid plumb down. Turn it all over to you, baby, can I crawl back to you? Turn it all over to you, baby, can I crawl back to you?
Gurf Morlix covering Blaze Foley's Baby, Can I Crawl Back to You? And that is such a great song. And I wonder if he probably convinced some people with that song.
Oh, yeah. He was, like I said before, he was so honest and so emotionally forthcoming. It was remarkable. He stands out among all the people that I've ever met as far as that goes.
Well, this is so great to hear these songs given new life on this record. And we should mention that again, it sounds really great.
Thanks.
I know you produced it, but it just sounds like it was done. I know you have a pretty great setup at your home studio, but it's to me, it stands up against all the other big studio records out there. So if folks are loving what they're hearing and they don't already own this album, They should. There are CD copies available on Bandcamp and gurfmorlix.com. You can also download the high-res digital tracks if you no longer own a CD player. But if you do, highly recommend getting the CD copy. Gurf says he has a few stashed away in a carport, so
Nice.
you want to unload that for him.
Yeah.
And let's see. Someone had a question. If you could sit with Blaze now, what songs would you want him to hear? Like of newer songs or?
Well, anything that I come across that I like, which is not all that much. Songs are like any other format, television, movies, books, whatever. 98% I have no use for, but I would be into showing him that what I've discovered to be the cream of the crop,
Mm-hmm. And any particular names you want to throw out there of artists that you're really into these days?
Well, I do like Sophie Galt. I know she's watching, or she commented.
Yes.
I think her album is really good. I like John Fulbright a lot. I like Ray Bonneville. I like mostly my friends, Ray Wiley Hubbard, Slade Cleaves, Mary Gaucher. It's all about the songs for me. You can perform them great, but the song has to be there.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and speaking of the songs, I was curious, were the songs that you chose for this particular project, were they ones that you performed with Blaze? I
think I probably performed every song on this album with Blaze 100 times or more.
Okay.
I think maybe there was one that I had never performed with him. But all the other ones, like he would write them and play them for me as soon as he wrote them, and I'd play along as soon as I heard it, and then we'd play it that night in a club.
Nice.
And so I just, I didn't have to learn anything to make this record. I knew it all already. I remembered my bass parts from the late 70s.
Nice.
Wow. How long did this album take to make? Because you were saying you already knew all these songs and knew all the parts, like compared to like maybe an original record where you have to, write the songs and learn them and
maybe
write them with people.
It was easy because I did know them, but I was also producing records for other people, and so I'd have to fit my sessions in between other people. So it might have taken over 6 months or something, but that was working a few days where I could.
Yeah. Well, again, sounds fantastic, and folks are just singing your praises over here.
All right.
Gurf is a wonderful writer, guitarist, producer, and can play a mean empty shampoo bottle. That sounds like there might be a story behind that one.
Wow, I wonder what that is. I'm going to have to find out. I think I'll try it now.
Yeah. And then someone else said all of Gurf's productions sound great. So, and I would have to concur. Are you working on anything right now? Like either producing for someone else? I know you just put out a new record of your own.
Yeah, my new album, A Taste of Ashes, came out about a month ago, and I'm always working on new stuff. For the last 5 years or more, I haven't really been performing, but I write and record every day, and I always seem to have like 4 finished albums in the can that are unreleased. The next one, I just released this one in April, and the next one's coming in October, and the one after that, which is already finished, is coming next April.
Nice.
I'm on the Beatles schedule now of releasing an album every 6 months because I have to unclog the pipeline.
Yeah.
When COVID happened, my songwriting, a lot of people just kind of went dry at that point. They didn't know what to do, and mine just exploded.
Yeah, it's amazing when you, so many artists who are busy touring, have trouble finding the time to carve out to write and record stuff. But when you're not touring, you have a lot more time on your hands to do that.
Yeah, and I try to write every night and record every day. And if if nothing comes to me, I'll sort of take something that I've already written and try to pound it into submission. It's a good thing to be able to edit. But I think if I'm going to be a writer, I should be writing almost every day.
That's great. Do you have like a set schedule for that, or is it just like when the muse kind of hits you that day?
Well,
or?
I'm a late night person, and I always have been since I was in high school. Part of it probably comes from playing in biker bars in Buffalo, New York, till 4 a.m, and then getting up and being in school by 8:25, or 8:05, whatever it was. So I can't go to sleep until 2 o'clock at least, and sometimes it's later. So I'm up at that point working on something.
Might as well write a song.
Yeah,
at that hour.
That's right.
That's when my filters go down, and that's when the antennae go up, and it's that's a lot of people write in the morning, but I'm just not like that. I get my ideas late at night, or my better ideas, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
The Back Catalog Listening Party is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Supporting the show with small and large donations every month, this committed group of music lovers keep the party going and enjoy special perks like getting first look at our upcoming guests and invitations to private after parties and live stream performances with the artists. If you'd like to learn how you can become a patron of the show, please visit patreon.com/backcataloglisteningparty.
Linda chimed in to say, sounds so good. When you listen now to this record that we're revisiting, Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream, are you hearing anything you'd want to change, or can you hear it with fresh ears and be happy with it?
Oh, I love it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Love it.
I always had a rule as a producer, not to have more than 10 songs on an album. I would stress that to my clients, but when I went to make this record, I can't remember how many are on here, but I couldn't cut any of these. I probably should have recorded more, but there's like 15, 16, I can't remember how many songs, but I couldn't cut any of them. I mean, I recorded them, and then I thought, no, that's got to be on there. That's got to be on there. So.
Testament to Blaze, and
yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I want to circle back to the comment you made about his sense of humor, and I have to ask about the album title and the duct tape that we're seeing. What can you tell us about that for folks who maybe are unfamiliar with the stories here?
Yeah, well, Blaze was a big Bob Dylan fan, and early on in his career, Bob had a song called Bob Dylan's Dream, and then Blaze came up with this song about a wild, imagined sort of a evening sex romp with an imaginary person, and he called it Blaze Foley's. It was Bob Dylan's 113th Dream was the name of Bob's song. So Blaze called his song Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream. And then it was time to find, and I cut that song on the album. I love the song. And it was time to find a title for the album. And I thought, well, do I put Gurf Morlix, my name's got to be on the cover, and then Blaze's name's got to be on the cover sometime. And then there's got to be a title on there somehow. And I thought, how am I going to get all that on there and not have it look crammed in, And then I thought about the song, and I thought, if I use that kind of says it all,
Perfect.
So upon reflection, I may have chosen a better title. There was some disc jockeys that didn't want to say it. Can't imagine why, but it's a normal occurrence,
Yeah. Well, and like you said, there was just kind of an honesty that it sounds like that came out with him, and that humor is apparent in the lyrics that you can see. And I just wanted to make sure we got to this picture too that was shared. Let me get this on stage here. Maybe you can kind of tell us what we're looking at here, because that's pretty amazing. Is that you dressed as him and him dressed as you?
Blaze always wore that tie, the horse tie, and that coat and that hat, and I always had that vest on, and I had a T-shirt that had said Cure on it that we bought in a resale shop, and someone took it from me and painted the letters up to make it say Gurf. So, and this was Halloween, I think probably 1980, and we went as each other.
That is amazing.
Blaze wore my clothes and I wore his.
Love it.
That's
Look
great.
at those young people.
Oh,
Man.
and a ghost between you as well.
Yeah.
So
the ghost was Ellen, and I don't know what became of her.
Well, if you want to check out this photo and all these other great images that Gurf was kind enough to share of him and Blaze, then you can check it out on the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast, go to backcataloglisteningparty.com and you can check them all out there. We're going to try and get to at least a couple more tunes because we're not obviously going to get to all the tracks on your album, but this next one that you picked to feature is one of the more famous ones, If I Could Only Fly. Is there anything you wanted to say about this tune?
Yeah, it's so honest, and he played it for me when he first came over to my house after we met, and, someone pointed out to me, like, 8 or 10 years ago, they said, "That song is just a whole bunch of cliches strung together," and I thought, "No, it's not," and then I went and listened, and they're all like cliche lines, but they're so honest that it actually works, and it's a good enough song that Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson both recorded it. So,
Yeah, two of
cliches,
the
what
best songwriters. So, you know.
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
testament.
Oh, man. And Kimmy Rhodes sings harmony with me on this song.
All right. This is Gurf Morlix singing Blaze Foley's If I Could Only Fly here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Almost felt you touching me just now. I wish I knew which way to turn and go. I feel so good, and I feel so bad. Wonder what I ought to do. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye. Come and be with you. I can hardly stand, got nowhere to run. Another sinking sun, one more lonely night. Wind keeps blowing somewhere every day. Tell me things get better somewhere up the way. Just dismal thinking on a dismal day. Sad songs for us to bear. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, if I could only fly, I could be with you. You know, sometimes I write happy songs, and sometimes little things are wrong. You know, I wish they all soon and I wanna stay. I wish you could come with me when I go again. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye. Come and be with you. I can hardly stand, got nowhere to run. Another sinking sun, one more lonely night. If I could only fly, if you could only fly, if we could only fly, there'd be no more lonely nights.
Yeah, if it's good enough for Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, it's good enough for all of us.
What a song.
That's
so
good.
good. If I Could Only Fly, written by Blaze Foley, performed by Gurf Morlix on his 2011 album. So good.
Yeah, and tasty pedal steel work there, by the way.
Hey,
that was
thanks.
Wonderful.
Yeah, really, really great. And folks joining in on the comments, Jim saying that you just nailed the emotion in that song. Totally agree. And Sophie joined in to just say, so many great Gurf songs. My favorites are Blanket and Is There Anyone Out There? So, and we should mention that the album we're revisiting today on the back catalog listening party, Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream, is available at gurfmorlix.com and on Bandcamp. And also, you can dive into Gurf's big catalog, and including that new record, which is out now, called A Taste of Ashes. And you can dive into some of these tracks that folks are talking about in the live chat. So definitely a good rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, and you
come
know,
on in.
not only do the songs sound like a lot better when you're not listening through compressed, digital streams, but you're also supporting the artist. And Gurf is making records. He's got a few in the can. He needs to get those out. And when you buy a record, it says, "I like what you do, and I want you to do more of it." So, if for no other reason than to show Gurf your support, you should head on over to gurfmorlix.com, purchase 1 or 10 CDs, and he'll understand, just what an impact, putting music out in the world has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that. And I also want to ask you about your new record, A Taste of Ashes. You said, this is one of like 4 that you have like kind of already in the can and done. When you have so many songs that you're kind of recording and trying to get out there, how did you try and did you batch them together in any specific way? Like, do some felt like they were living together and they should be on a record together? Or was it just sort of sequential, or?
It kind of comes down to when I am ready to record, and I'm going to have 30 or 40 songs to choose from, but they just kind of group themselves together somehow. I don't know how that happens, but I'll record these things and I'll mix them, and then they'll just end up on a playlist that's like 12 or 15 songs, and I just figure out which 3 or 4 or 5 to dump from there. And then the next album, I just do that again, so it sort of happens organically. I don't know what the real process is other than it just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, check out this latest collection, A Taste of Ashes. And also you can follow what Gurf is doing and when that next record's coming out in October and all that good stuff. And I know you're saying you're not really performing much these days. I know Alan was asking if you were coming to Green anytime soon, but I know you're not performing live much these days.
No, I haven't performed since COVID started, and I haven't had it, and I don't want it. I'm compromised, and some people tell me that I'm old, and I know it would not be good for me. So I'm staying out of crowded rooms at this point.
So the best way to support Gurf is to buy those records and enjoy the music that way.
And then I'm waiting for someone to make an offer I can't refuse. So far,
so Alan, you have to come up with a really good offer, is what he's saying. Also, we had another question. Digging back, Linda said, "How do you think Blaze would feel about his new notoriety?" And of course, sadly this happens a lot, right? After people pass, and especially after the documentary, and there's kind of been a resurgence of interest in Blaze Foley's songs and career. How do you think he would have felt about that?
His mind would be blown. Like I said, he never got to tour, but he wanted to be a legend, and he is now. And I've watched his legend grow since he was murdered. But he, like I said, he only ever played in the little towns that he lived in, and he could not possibly understand how he could be becoming more popular every year. Like I said, when I go to the grave, sometimes I'll find like some 19-year-olds out there with a guitar and a bottle of vodka, and they're writing a song for Blaze or something. It's like, how does this happen? But it's the songs and how great and honest they are. That's how it happens.
Yeah, great songs, and also, again, there's that the 2011 documentary Duct Tape Messiah, and there's duct tape on the cover. And for folks who might not be familiar, what's with the duct tape?
Blaze he shopped in Goodwill stores. He never spent more than $5 on anything in his life, and he made fun of a lot of people who were around back in Houston in the late 70s who were spending all this money on Western wear. That urban cowboy movie had become a thing, and people were coming into clubs with silver collar tips and silver boot tips, and Blaze thought duct tape, which was cheap and available, looked just as good as silver. And so he started decorating his clothing with it. He'd make the collar tips, or he'd make the boot tips, and then he'd make a lapel of duct tape, and then he had a guitar strap that was duct tape, and so it was a fashion statement.
Love it. And then there was also another film that was made in 2018 with Ethan Hawke about Blaze Foley. What can you tell us about that movie?
It's a feature film, and Ethan decided he loved Blaze's music, and he decided to make a feature film about him. And then he called me up. He said, "I know who you are, and I want you to be involved in this thing." And first thing I said was, "Well, I really don't like biopics." And so there's strike one. But he talked a really good game, and he said, "Well, how about if I send you the script and you read it?" And I said, I'm willing to do that. And then I got the script, and it was dialogue that I couldn't hear Blaze saying, but Ethan talked a really good game. And finally, in the end, I agreed to be involved if he would promise me that he would not make a Hollywood film, but he would make a small piece of art. And he said, "I promise I'll do that." And I think he came through. And like I said, I don't like biopics, but I think this one is about as good as a musician's film could be. I was just really, really kind of pleased with it. There's some things that I wish had been better, but I think he did a really good job.
Wonderful. Well,
it's worth seeing. Yeah.
We'll share a link to that as well in the show notes if you go to backcatalog.listeningparty.com. And someone was wondering, did Blaze have family who now benefit from his publishing?
Yeah, his sister was handling his estate, and she just died a month or two ago. And now her descendants are taking care of things. But yeah, the family was getting whatever money came in, and there is some.
Good.
So he's ramping up. He's getting more successful every year.
That's nice. Well, while we were on the topic of pics and television and such things, you also shared that you were featured in something here from Mike Judge. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah.
What are we looking at here?
Mike Judge put out a series called Mike Judge Presents Tales from the Tour Bus, and it was about country musicians. I don't think of Blaze as country necessarily, but that's what it was. And he did an episode about Blaze, and they came over and they filmed me talking and telling stories about Blaze, and then they animated it. And I love that photo of Blaze in the crowd. That's ostensibly the moment that I met him, when he came up to me in between songs and wanted to show me this guitar. And it's
that's the one he's selling you.
And yeah, and it's a really good show. And I thought that was the best episode. I may be a little partial, but it's really worth watching. Yeah. Tales from the Tour Bus.
So many good things, and so many great ways of paying homage to Blaze Foley's great writing and incredible life that really does feel like a blaze, like it was on fire while it was there, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
The Back Catalog Listening Party is brought to you by EFS Publicity. Founded by veteran publicist, promoter, DJ, and musician Ellen Stanley, EFS brings an artist's perspective to the table, working to help clients get to the next level in their career. Services include national and international media campaigns, radio promotions, tour press, crowdfunding, grant writing, and more. Get a quote or set up a consultation today at efspublicity.com. Well, we're going to have one more tune at least before we head out today. But before we do, we have a little business to take care of here at the Back Catalog Listening Party. We need to thank the folks that have kept the show going for over 5 years allowed us to get to this point and chat with Gurf about this record. So these are the folks that have kept the party going for 5 years. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Ellen, Chris, Becky, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead Pick and Parlors, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Nikki, Joni, David, CJ, Wiley, Stephanie, Christy, Diane, Hetty, Sandy, Neighbor Ann, BZ, Alyssa, and maybe you. If you'd like to join our crew of music nerds that want to dig into these albums and ask questions, participate in the live tapings, then you can join our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Back Catalog Listening Party. There's a bunch of levels you can join at, or you can join for free and just get the update on what's coming up on the podcast. But we would love to have you join us. So if you're listening to the podcast and you think, how do I get invited to these live tapings? How do I get to talk with folks like Gurf Morlix live? Well, this is the best way to do it. Join our Patreon. And mainly, we're just happy you're here joining us, though, and having your ears, because there's something about listening to music with people, even if we're not in a room together. But it also allows us to talk with folks like Gurf, who because he's not going to crowded rooms these days. So it's really special to have him joining us today.
Yeah, well, the fact that you have those people sponsoring you, that means you're doing something worthwhile and you're doing it well.
Thanks.
Well, that wouldn't happen otherwise.
True. And also, this show is only as good as the artists that say yes to spending an hour with us. And so we're really grateful for Gurf for joining us and sharing these really personal stories about Blaze, which I can't think of anyone who probably has more of them than you, Gurf. So this is a real treat. I know we're only getting a sliver of them, but they're really special. And we have one more song we're going to listen to, which you referenced earlier in the show. And I think you said this is your favorite, right?
It's my favorite Blaze song. And sometimes I think it's my favorite all-time song.
Wow.
And it's Cold, Cold World. And is there anything about how you recorded it or approached the song that you love so much?
I just tried to stay out of the way. It's such a great song. And when I met him, I think it only had 4 verses. And then not long after that, he had just split up with his wife, Sybil Rosen, at the time, right when I met him, right around that time. And he wrote another verse, which I think just pulls the whole song together. The last verse just kills me.
All right. Well, it's a great way to end our hour together here with Gurf Morlix, singing Blaze Foley's Cold, Cold World here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I've tried for a long time, but I think I can win. I could do it all better if I could do it again. Wherever I'm going is the same place I've been. Ain't it a cold, cold world? Outside it was hot, but inside I was cold. The eyes of the young met the eyes of the old, and what they were thinking I'll never be told. Ain't it a cold, cold world? An old lady asked me about the new daylight time. I said it don't matter. She said I don't mind. And the bus driver said, you still owe me a dime. Ain't it a cold, cold world? Can't get no job and I can't get no rest. I started out east, but I ended up west. And I'm so glad to be here, I'm sure I would guess. Ain't it a cold, cold world? I might have to leave you, I think's what she said. I wish I could sleep instead of tossing in bed. I can find myself thinking that I'd rather be dead. Ain't it a cold, cold world? Ain't it a cold, cold world?
Ah,
Wow.
yeah, that's a song.
Man.
Not much to say after a song like that. That's Blaze Foley's Cold, Cold World, as done by Gurf Morlix on his 2011 album, Blaze Foley's 113th Wet Dream, which we have been revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Gurf joining us live. And Connie says, incredible show. Thanks to all of you.
Well, you guys made it great. You made it fun.
Although I don't know, I think Blaze's spirit must have been hovering around because this was a lot of fun.
It sure was.
But the songs and the conversation is really what makes it so special. And all of you joining us today, especially those of you in the live chat, asking questions and sharing comments, makes it particularly special. So we want to thank all of you for being here.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to the podcast version and you like it, please review it, subscribe to the podcast. We do drop episodes every Friday with our favorite artists revisiting old records. I mean, I can't say they're all as amazing as Blaze Foley's songs because this is a cut above, but this has been really special.
Really, yeah. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us, Gurf.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It was a pleasure.
Well, we'll just have to have you back on to revisit one of your records, Gurf. Since you're clearly putting out a ton and you already have a substantive back catalog. So we'll have to have you back. And in the meanwhile, thanks to all of you for joining us. And we hope you'll join us next week for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.
All right. Well, until then, keep supporting independent music. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on the Back Catalog Listening Party. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, which helps more people discover our show and our guests.
And do you want to be a part of the live show, get a first look at upcoming guests, and receive invites to private online parties and live streams? Then join our Patreon community at backcataloglisteningparty.com.
Have a great week. We'll see you back here next Friday for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.